Hey guys, Neo here with something new that I was thinking of doing, which is sort of dramatic reading or something, either via comics, creepypasta, fanfics, lyrics, or anything that just involves reading of some kind. Uh, in the video, I'll be showing pictures or a video of the topic that I'm reading of, and if it's a comic, I'll be showing the panel. If there's nothing I can find on it, which is pretty much impossible, I'll just put like random pictures or something, I don't know. If you have any requests on what I should read, just post it in the comments and I'll look into it to see if I want to do it or not. I hope you enjoy, and enjoy whatever the hell I decide to read. Okay, see you! Okay, I need your help with this. This is not a copy pasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This is a video game related specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked to say the least. I could finally play all those old games of my youth that I haven't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And while beggars can be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 computers. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighbors about 20 miles or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score some good deals from ignorant people. I ended up picking up Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and two other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars there, and only one table set up with a random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my guts on these things, so I got out of the car, and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd, if you asked me to tell you why I thought it was displeasing. I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon, and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me, and asked what I was looking for, and I immediately noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had the glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look to his left eye instead, try not to offend him, and ask him if he had any old video games. I was always wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy, and turned to head back into the garage. I watched him hobble away. I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across the table were rather peculiar paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason it looked almost like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Initially I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some brooding bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora's shaped blot, I looked up and the old man was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex, and I laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was a standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on it in a black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a coincidence this was and asked him how much he wanted for it. The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free, that it used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how that man phrased that, but I didn't really pay any attention to then. I was too caught up not finding this game but getting it for free. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical since this looked like a pretty shady cartridge and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game. That's all I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I was nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed. When I booted up the game, to my surprise, it worked just fine. And there was one save file named simply Ben. Goodbye, Ben, he was saying. Goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent and obviously good senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all of the masks and had 3/4 of the remaining of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3, and by the Stone Tower Temple, with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of the tradition and starting the game, ready to relive my childhood. For some shady-looking game cartridge, I was pretty impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at the times the NPCs would call me Link, and at other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out, though, after a while, and it was around after I had beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had a tendency to preserve the files just out of respect of the game's original owner. It's not like I needed two files anyways. Hoping that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now, NPCs wouldn't call me anything where my name should be in the dialogue. There's just a blank space. My save file name was still called Link, though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting a lens of truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now, some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those of you who don't know, you can Google it. It's just a gist of it, that right as the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, and the countdown disappears, and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch and to try to finish this Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora's boss fight room at the end of the game, the trippy Boxton Arena, staring at Skull Kid, hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me. The background music, which was regularly for the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat, and this was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area. No matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though, and this kept up for around 60 seconds, and I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach the reset button when the text appeared on my screen. Not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized the text. You get the message when you get the room key from Anu at the Stockpot Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if there was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen, and again, like the first one, it was already pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss? Yes, no. I paused for a second, contemplating what I should press and how the game would react. When I realized that I couldn't select no, taking a deep breath, I pressed the yes, and the screen faded to white, with the words, Dawn of a New Day, with the subtext beneath it, where I was ported to filled me with most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having a feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clowntown. I walked out of the Clowntown, as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all the inhabitants were gone. Usually with the fourth day glitch, you can still find the guards and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time, they were all gone. Which replaced them was an ominous feeling that there was something out there in the same area as me, and that it was watching over me. I had 4 hearts to my name, and the hero's bow, but at this point, I wasn't even considering for my avatar. I felt I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then I would hear a faint laugh of the happy masked salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing, no one. Textures were missing. West Clock Tower had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken, hopelessly broken, as the reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time. I just remembered standing in the middle of South Clock Town, realizing that I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-the-place textures and the atmosphere and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted, but I was literally on the verge of tears, and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful sense of depression that was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black, and I would just zone in to another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time, or Song of Soaring, it would only say, your note echoes far, but nothing happens. By this point, I was obviously the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the building. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, That's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me. Not Link. Me with the Skull Kid screaming, playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song, allegedly, of emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with a haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into the South Clocktown, and to my horror, the fucking statue was followed me in the only way I can compare this as like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play with the statue peering behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or I don't even want to fucking say it, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it, the terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, and it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to make weird animations I'd never even seen him do before. He would flail his arms around, or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I was face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordsmaster's dojo and ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one, but as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into his corner, I just stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again to the happy masked salesman, and Link turned to face my screen, standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo terrified. Suddenly, the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again. As I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again, this time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it was summoned behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared in the southern clock town. As I ran aimlessly, in a sheer panic, I suddenly read dead, screamed, and the screen faded to the black as dawn of a new day, and blank appeared again. The screen faded in, and I was standing on top of the clock tower with the Skull Kid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up, and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skull Kid just stared at me, hauntingly, with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. The Stone Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot at the Skull Kid. It actually hit him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good." And I picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I'd never seen this move used by anyone in this game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skull Kid laughed, and the screen faded to black. Only to me reappeared in the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground. By some unknown force, he immediately burst into flames again, killing him. This time, during the death scene, the faint sounds of the rehearsed song of healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there were no music playing at this time, that all there was eerie silence. I was remembered that in the original encounter with the Skill Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time. Before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames, and he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time, Link was lying on the ground, dead, in a position I'd never seen him in this game before. His head tilted towards the camera, with the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do was just stare at Link's dead body. After about 30 seconds of this, the game simply faded out with this message. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Before kicking you out of the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with Your Turn. Your Turn had 3 hearts, 0 masks, and no items. I selected Your Turn, and immediately when I did, I was returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link, dead, and the Skill Kid hovering over, with the Skill Kids laughing, looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up again, there's one more saved file added below Your Turn, entitled Ben. Ben's save file is right back where it was before I deleted it, at the stone tower temple with the moon almost crashing. I turned the game off at the point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up even for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head, and just remembering the scene of dread I felt exploring Clowntown. I drove back to the old man's house today and to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way I was going there alone. To find out that there was a for sale sign in front yard. When I rang the door, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts, recording what happened. Sorry if this has grammatical errors and whatnot. I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game, even more so now that I relived it a second time writing this all down. But I feel like there's still more to it than meets the eye, and that there's something calling to me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. And if I could get a hold of the old man, then I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity, I feel like. But next time I do this, I'm going to be recording my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end, so you can see the last few minutes of what I saw, including Skull Kid and alleged statue, but it's on YouTube here. I'm going to stay on this thread for a little while longer before I fall asleep to answer any questions you guys might have, or hopefully listen to your ideas or theories to help me shed some light into this, or maybe things I should try to do. I think I'm going to play Ben's file tomorrow to see what happens. Maybe I was supposed to do that all along. I don't believe in paranormal shit, but this is a little fucked up. But maybe this Ben guy is just really good hacker programmer. I don't want to think about the alternatives he isn't. That's the end of the copy paste. I'm hoping that maybe this is some kind of running gag the developers had, that other people had gone gag or hacked copies of the game like this. This just really scares me. And this concludes the first part of Ben Drowned. I hope you guys have enjoyed so far. I'll be doing the rest of it later. I don't know when, but yeah. Leave a comment on what I should do next after this on any of the videos for Ben Drowned. I don't really know. I'll look through all of them. Probably be like one comment on one of them, for all of them. Whatever. Goodbye.